I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd be questioning everything I thought I knew about my marriage. My wife Claire and I had been married for nearly 6 years. On the surface, it looked perfect: great jobs, a cozy home, and even a golden retriever named Max. But as I dug deeper, I found that things weren't quite as rosy as they appeared. I started noticing subtle changes in her behavior about a year ago. Claire, who used to be the queen of communication, had become less engaged. It began with the late nights at work, which she insisted were just part of her new project. I tried to be supportive, but there was this nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I could feel the distance growing between us, like a slow tide eroding a once sturdy shore. Then there were the little things, like her phone. She would always keep it face down, a habit she never had before. And if I ever caught a glimpse of her screen, she would hurriedly minimize whatever app she was using. At first, I chalked it up to her just being private, but I couldn't shake the sense that something was off. The first time I overheard her whisper another man's name, it was during one of those late nights. I woke up around 2 a.m. and she was mumbling in her sleep. It was a name I didn't recognize: Ethan. I brushed it off as a dream. I mean, who doesn't have weird dreams? But it stuck in my mind like a shard of glass, and I found myself replaying it over and over. Then came the night that changed everything. I had a business trip planned for the following week, so I decided to surprise Claire with a quiet night in. I bought her favorite takeout, a bottle of wine, and even set up her favorite movie. The plan was solid, but as I got home, I noticed her car was already in the driveway. I expected to see her on the couch, wrapped in a blanket with a smile, but instead I found an empty house. I sent her a quick text. "Hey love, I'm home. Let's eat." 5 minutes passed, then 10. I started to feel the panic rising in my throat. I checked the time; she should have been home by then. Just as I was about to call her, I heard the familiar sound of her key in the door. She walked in, looking flustered and slightly disheveled. "Sorry, babe, got caught up with a last-minute thing at work," she said, brushing past me as she headed to the kitchen. As she poured herself a glass of wine, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "You look like you've been running," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Oh, just the usual," Claire replied, avoiding my gaze. But something in my gut told me to dig deeper. I decided to take a look at her phone while she was in the shower. As I picked it up, my heart raced. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but the urge to understand what was happening was overwhelming. I scrolled through her messages, praying it would be nothing, just a silly misunderstanding. Then I found it. A conversation with Ethan, full of flirty emojis and plans to meet up. My breath hitched in my throat, and I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. The lies, the late nights, everything fell into place in a horrible, jagged puzzle. I couldn't believe it. It was real. I put the phone down just before she emerged from the bathroom, trying to act normal. But inside, I was a whirlwind of confusion and rage. The betrayal stung like a fresh wound, and I didn't know how to handle it. I had to confront her, but how do you even start a conversation like that? How could I possibly wrap my head around the fact that the woman I loved had been sharing herself, not just physically but emotionally, with another man? The moment she walked back into the room, I knew there was no way I could let this slide. It was time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "Claire, we need to talk." Her eyes widened slightly at my tone, and I could see the gears turning in her head. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I was ready to explode, but I needed to keep my cool. "I know about Ethan." The silence that followed was deafening. I braced myself for whatever twist she would throw my way. To be continued. Claire's face paled, and for a moment I thought I might see the cracks in her carefully constructed facade. But then just as quickly, her expression morphed from shock to anger. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, crossing her arms defensively. I could feel the tension in the air thickening as I prepared for the inevitable lies. "I found your texts," I stated bluntly, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. "What's going on, Claire?" For a moment she looked as if she might actually confess, but instead she squared her shoulders and launched into a tirade. "You're being paranoid. I can't believe you would go through my things. This is ridiculous." "Ridiculous," I echoed, my voice rising in disbelief. I don't think it's ridiculous to be concerned when my wife is texting another man with heart emojis and planning secret meetups. She huffed, clearly trying to dismiss my accusations. You're taking this out of context. Ethan is just a friend from work. We talk about projects, and he's been a great support for me during this busy time. You know how stressful things have been. I would never cheat on you. The denial was infuriating. I felt my heart race, fueled by a mix of disbelief and adrenaline. You expect me to believe that, Claire? You whispered his name in your sleep. This isn't just some innocent friendship. She rolled her eyes and laughed bitterly. Oh, please, you're making this into a much bigger deal than it is. You're just jealous because I have a successful career and you're stuck in that dead-end job. That stung. I knew my job wasn't the most glamorous, but that was irrelevant. This was about trust, about her choice to betray me. This isn't about my job, this is about you lying to me. You're having an emotional affair and now you want to play the victim. Her expression hardened and I could see the facade of innocence she had been putting on start to crack. Fine, if you want to believe that, then go ahead, but don't act like you're innocent in this. You've been so distant too. I scoffed at her audacity. Distant? You've been the one pulling away, Claire. I've tried to reach out. When was the last time you really engaged with me? She opened her mouth to retort, but I could tell she was grasping for something to say. I had cornered her, and for a fleeting moment I felt a surge of victory. But then I remembered the texts, the intimacy she shared with another man. That feeling settled heavily in my stomach. I can't believe you throw that back at me, I said quietly. I'm trying to understand what's happening here, but all I'm getting from you is more lies. She stood there, fists clenched, and for a moment I wondered if she might crack. Then, as if she had made a decision, she sighed dramatically. You know what? Maybe we should just take a break. I can't deal with this right now. The word slammed into me like a freight train. A break. Wasn't that just a euphemism for her to continue whatever she was doing with Ethan without guilt? I had to stop this. You mean a break so you can keep seeing him? I shot back. No, that's not what I meant. She insisted, but the urgency in her voice told me otherwise. Look, I don't want to fight about this right now. Let's just cool off and talk later. I shook my head, feeling the anger boil over. No, Claire, you don't get to decide when I'm supposed to be okay with this. We're talking now. She threw her hands up in exasperation. You're impossible. I can't believe you're treating me like this. I took a step closer, my voice low but firm. You're the one who's been cheating on me, Claire. I deserve the truth. What's really going on? She hesitated, the mask slipping for just a second. Fine, maybe I have developed feelings for him, but it's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated? You mean like how it's complicated to betray your husband? I spat, feeling the sting of betrayal twist the knife deeper. Her eyes were darting around the room, searching for an escape from this conversation. I didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. Did what just happen? You didn't think to tell me. Just acknowledge that you were unhappy. My voice was rising again, but I couldn't help it. The pain and betrayal were overwhelming. I didn't want to hurt you, she shouted back, her voice breaking. Too late for that, Claire. I stepped back, my mind racing. What was I going to do next? How could I even begin to process this? I felt raw, exposed, and utterly lost. The woman I loved, the life we had built together, it was all crumbling before my very eyes. I thought I could confront the truth and move forward, but now, with everything laid out, I felt the weight of despair settle around me. The night dragged on, and we stood there in silence, each lost in our own thoughts, grappling with the destruction of our marriage. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. I would have to fight for what I wanted, even if it meant tearing apart the life we had built together. To be continued. The days that followed our confrontation were a blur of confusion and heartache. Claire and I found ourselves living in the same house like strangers. The warmth that once filled our home had been replaced by a chilling tension. I went to work, but I could hardly concentrate. My mind kept drifting back to the sight of her face when I confronted her, the way she tried to downplay the affair as if it were just a minor inconvenience. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the betrayal, of the whispers of another man's name echoing in my mind. I had spent nearly a week in turmoil, oscillating between anger and heartbreak. In an effort to gain some clarity, I decided to confide in my best friend, Jake. We known each other since college, and I trusted him to give me an honest perspective. I invited him over one evening, hoping for some distraction and a bit of advice. As we sat on my couch, beers in hand, I poured out everything that had happened. I told him about the late nights, the texts, the whispers. His expression shifted from concern to disbelief as I recounted the details of Claire's lies. "Dude, that's brutal," he said, shaking his head. "You deserve better than this." "Yeah, I know," I sighed, "but it's just hard to process. Like we built a life together. I thought we were happy. Clearly, she wasn't as happy as you thought. Look, you've got a few options here. You could confront her again, but what's the point? She's shown her true colors." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "I just don't know if I can walk away. I love her, man. We've shared so much." "Love isn't enough when trust is broken," he said firmly. "You need to think about what you want moving forward." As I considered his advice, I knew deep down that I couldn't just sit back and let Claire continue her affair, even if it had become a twisted part of our reality. I needed a plan. A part of me wanted revenge. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. But another part of me yearned for closure, for answers. That night, I decided to take a risk. I would confront Claire again, but this time I would go in with a strategy. I spent hours drafting my thoughts, focusing on what I wanted to say. I needed to expose the truth while also making her understand the gravity of her actions. A few days later, I found her in the kitchen sipping coffee while scrolling through her phone. I approached her cautiously, my heart pounding. "Claire, we need to talk again." She looked up and the moment of recognition flickered across her face. "Really? I thought we were done with all this drama." "Drama? This is our life we're talking about. You need to take it seriously," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She rolled her eyes. "Fine. What do you want to say?" "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. I realize that you've been lying to me about Ethan, and it's time to come clean. I want the truth, no more excuses." Her defensiveness began to bubble up again. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry, that I regret it, I don't want to keep going in circles." "Then let's stop going in circles, just admit what's happening. Are you still seeing him? What's the nature of your relationship?" She hesitated, her eyes locking onto mine as if searching for the right words. "You have to understand, it wasn't planned. We connected over work and it just turned into something more." "More? You mean you're falling for him?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. As the finality of those words hit me, she looked away and I saw a flicker of guilt cross her features before she composed herself. "I don't know, I didn't want to hurt you, that's why I didn't say anything." My heart sank further. "You thought keeping me in the dark would protect me. You had the chance to be honest and you chose him over me." Claire sighed heavily and ran her fingers through her hair. "You're right. I should have told you, but I was scared. I didn't want to lose you." "You already did lose me, Claire. By choosing to betray me, you shattered any trust we had." There was a long pause, and I could see the reality of our situation settling in for her. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "I don't know, but you need to make a choice. If you want to be with Ethan, then you need to leave. If you want to save our marriage, you need to cut all ties with him and prove to me that you can be honest." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious. You want me to just choose like that?" "Yes, I am serious. I deserve to know where I stand, and I can't keep living in this limbo. If you want to fight for us, then you need to show me that you're willing to put in the work." Claire looked down, her shoulders slumping as she processed my words. "I don't want to lose you. I love you, but I don't know if I can just walk away from Ethan." "Then you need to decide if you love him more than you love the life we've built together," I replied firmly. "I can't do this dance anymore." The silence stretched between us, thick with the weight of our choices. I could see the conflict in her eyes, but I also sensed the crack in her resolve. I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. As I turned to leave the room, I felt a mix of hope and dread. The road ahead would be painful, but it was a road we both needed to navigate. I had laid my cards on the table, and now it was her turn to choose which path to take. To be continued. The days after that confrontation were filled with an unbearable tension. Claire and I floated through the motions of our daily lives, trapped in a limbo of uncertainty. I could see the weight of my words hanging over her, but I also sensed a flicker of resolve. For the first time, it felt as if I had taken control of the narrative, and I was determined to hold on to that momentum. Claire seemed more introspective than usual, often lost in her thoughts. I found her staring into space during meals, her mind wandering far away from our conversations. Max, our golden retriever, sensed the shift too. He would curl up between us, providing a comforting presence, a reminder of happier times. But even his familiarity couldn't ease the palpable discomfort that had settled in our home. One evening, I returned from work determined to initiate a real conversation about where we stood. I found Claire in the living room, scrolling mindlessly through her phone. I had been silently hoping that she would have reached out to Ethan, but a part of me was terrified that she might have. I steadied my nerves as I approached her. "Claire, can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She looked up, her eyes betraying a swirl of emotions. "Are you sure we need to? I feel like we've talked enough." "Maybe, but we need to make a decision. We can't keep going like this," I replied, my heart racing. I needed clarity for both of us. She took a deep breath, clearly preparing herself for a difficult conversation. "Okay, what do you want to know?" "Have you had any contact with Ethan since our last conversation?" I asked, my voice steady despite the apprehension clawing at my insides. "I haven't spoken to him," she said, almost defensively. "I've been trying to focus on us." "That's good to hear," I replied cautiously. "But I need to know that you truly mean it. What are you thinking about all of this?" Her brow furrowed as she mulled it over. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching. I never intended for things to get this far. I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't affect us, but it did, and I regret not being honest with you from the start." "Regret isn't enough, Claire," I said, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "It's going to take more than just saying you're sorry to rebuild what's been broken. I need actions, not just words." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand that. I want to work on us. I love you and I want to fight for our marriage." The sincerity in her voice struck a chord, but doubt lingered in the back of my mind. "Then show me," I urged. "Prove that you're committed to making this work. No more secrets, no more lies." We spent the next hour talking through our feelings and fears. Claire shared her struggles at work, the pressure she felt, the vulnerabilities that had led her to seek solace in someone else. I listened intently, trying to understand how we had arrived at this point. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the loss of connection, the neglect of our emotional intimacy. As the evening wore on, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been shattered. That hope was quickly extinguished, however, when Claire revealed something that turned my world upside down. "There's something else I need to tell you," she said, biting her lip nervously. "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing. I spent the night with Ethan last week. Just once. I didn't want to tell you, but I can't keep lying to you," she confessed. The ground beneath me felt like it had shifted again. I had prepared myself for anything, but hearing those words was like a punch to the gut. "So you did see him again?" I whispered, incredulous. "I swear it was a mistake. I was feeling lost and confused. I didn't think it would happen," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "But I want to be with you. I made a huge mistake and I'm so sorry." I felt my world shatter all over again. "Claire, do you realize what you've just done? You're still attached to him." My anger surged, the betrayal cutting deeper than I thought possible. "I know it's hard to believe, but I truly want to work on our marriage. Please give me another chance." Her desperation was palpable, but it did little to quell the storm brewing inside me. "You say you want to work things out, but you're still holding on to the past. How can we move forward if you keep dragging that baggage along?" "I'm trying to let go," she insisted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I just need your help to figure this out." Her tears tugged at my heart, but I felt the anger boiling within me. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. You've broken my trust, and every time I think we're making progress, you hit me with another betrayal. I want to make it right," she cried out, her voice raw with emotion. "I love you and I need you to believe me." The truth was, I didn't know if I could. I felt lost in a sea of betrayal and doubt. "I can't promise anything right now, Claire. I need time to process this. I can't keep living like this." She nodded, her face twisted with anguish. "I understand. Just know that I'm here, willing to do whatever it takes to fix this." I left the room, my heart heavy with the weight of her confession. The once familiar walls of our home felt confining, filled with memories tainted by betrayal. I needed time to think, time to decide if I could ever trust her again. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I felt caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The love I had for Claire was still there, but it was accompanied by a deep-seated fear of losing myself in this chaos. I realized that the next steps we took would define the future of our marriage, whether it would be rebuilt on a foundation of honesty or crumble into dust. To be continued. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Claire and I were in a constant cycle of uneasy conversations and forced interactions, but the trust between us was shattered. Each time I looked at her, I was reminded of the betrayal and lies that had infiltrated our lives. In an effort to regain some semblance of control, I started seeking advice from friends and even considering therapy. I needed an impartial perspective, something to help me dig through the fog of emotions that clouded my judgment. One evening, I met with Jake again at our favorite bar. I needed a break from the heaviness of home, and I hoped that talking it out would help. "Man, you look like you've been through the ringer," Jake remarked, sliding a beer toward me. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know, man," I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I feel like I'm stuck in a limbo. I want to move forward, but I can't seem to shake the anger and hurt." "Understandable," he said empathetically. "Have you thought about going to couples therapy? It might help both of you work through your issues in a controlled environment." "I've thought about it, but Claire is resistant. She thinks we can work it out on our own," I replied, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "But honestly, I don't think she fully grasps the depth of the damage she's caused." "Then maybe it's time to set some boundaries," Jake suggested, leaning back in his chair. "You need to protect yourself emotionally. If she's not willing to put in the effort, maybe you should consider what that means for your future." His words struck a chord, and I felt a renewed sense of determination. I realized that I had been waiting for Claire to change, to prove her commitment, but I hadn't taken a step back to evaluate what I truly wanted. Later that evening, I returned home with a newfound resolve. I found Claire sitting on the couch, her eyes hollow and tired. The tension in the air was thick, and I took a deep breath before speaking. "We need to talk about where we're heading." She looked up, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "Okay, what's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot about us, and I've come to the conclusion that we need professional help," I said firmly. "I believe it could give us the tools we need to navigate this mess." Her brow furrowed, and I could see the apprehension in her eyes. "I don't know, Matt. I feel like we can figure this out on our own. I don't want to air our dirty laundry to a stranger." "Then where does that leave us?" I countered, frustration creeping into my voice. "We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I need to know you're serious about making changes." "I am serious," she insisted, her voice rising in desperation. "But I don't think therapy is the answer. Can't we just keep working at it together?" "No, Claire, we've already tried that and look where it got us." I took a step closer, my heart pounding. "I can't go through this again. I need to feel like we're both committed to fixing this, and I don't see that happening without external guidance." She crossed her arms defensively, and I could see the walls going up around her. "So you want to force me into therapy? That doesn't sound like a solution." "It's not about forcing you, it's about saving our marriage. We need help to find our way back to each other," I replied, my voice softening. "I can't do this alone." As the silence draped over us, I could see the conflict warring within her. Finally, she sighed, the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. "Okay, I'll consider it, but I'm not promising anything." I nodded, relieved but still on edge. "That's all I'm asking for right now. Just consider it." The next few days passed in a haze, and I tried to focus on my work and personal life, but Claire's presence was a constant reminder of everything that had transpired. A small part of me held on to the hope that therapy could open her eyes and help us rebuild what had been lost. Finally, after much deliberation, Claire agreed to go to therapy. We scheduled our first appointment, which felt like a small victory, albeit one laced with anxiety. I hoped that having a professional involved would prompt her to be more honest about her feelings and the choices she'd made. When the day of our first session arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. We arrived at the therapist's office, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. As we entered the room, the therapist introduced herself and began to guide us through the process. Let's start with a simple question. What brings you both here today? She asked, her voice calm and inviting. I took a deep breath, glancing at Claire before answering. We're struggling to rebuild trust after infidelity, and I want to understand how we can move forward together. The therapist nodded, looking between us. That's a great starting point. Claire, would you like to share your perspective? Claire fidgeted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. I guess I didn't realize how much I was pushing Matt away. I got lost in my career, and I made some terrible decisions that hurt him. The therapist encouraged her to elaborate, and I listened intently as Claire began to open up about her feelings of inadequacy and the pressures she faced. For the first time, I felt like we were getting somewhere. It was hard to listen to her pain, but it was necessary to understand the root of the problems we faced. As the session continued, we began to peel back the layers of our relationship, exposing vulnerabilities that had long been buried. The therapist guided us through exercises to communicate better, and as we talked, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe we could navigate this storm together. After the session, we walked to the car in silence, both lost in thought. I couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, a chance to rebuild not just our marriage but also the trust that had been shattered. But that night, as I lay in bed next to Claire, doubts crept back in. Would she stay committed to the process, or would she slip back into old habits? I wanted to believe in our potential, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. As I closed my eyes, I knew that the road ahead would be challenging. But together, with the help of therapy, we might just find our way back to each other. And with that flicker of hope, I held on to the possibility that love could still conquer the pain. To be continued. The weeks that followed our initial therapy session became a turning point for Claire and me. We attended weekly sessions, and each time I felt the walls between us gradually starting to crumble. It wasn't easy. There were moments of raw vulnerability that left us both in tears. But it was also a time of discovery, as we began to truly understand the motivations and insecurities that had driven us apart. Claire's honesty in those sessions was eye-opening. She revealed the immense pressure she felt at work, the constant need to prove herself in a male-dominated environment, and how that had led her to seek comfort outside our marriage. Seeing her open up about her struggles helped me understand that her infidelity wasn't just a reflection of her feelings for Ethan. It was a cry for help masked as an escape. During one session, the therapist guided us through an exercise that involved sharing our fears and dreams. When it was my turn, I spoke candidly about my fear of losing Claire and the profound hurt I felt from her betrayal. I expressed my desire not just to heal but to grow together and strengthen our bond. Claire listened intently, tears brimming in her eyes, and when it was her turn, she opened up about her fear of failure, not just in her career but in our marriage. I felt like I was failing you, and instead of communicating that, I sought validation in the wrong place. She admitted, her voice trembling. Hearing her voice, those fears made me realize that our struggles were not solely one-sided. We were both flawed individuals, trying to navigate the complexities of life together. The more we unveiled our vulnerabilities, the more I felt a renewed sense of connection. As we continued our sessions, we established new habits. We began to communicate more openly outside of therapy, setting aside time each evening to check in with each other. I made it a point to express my appreciation for her efforts, and she reciprocated by engaging more actively in our relationship. We started going on regular dates, rediscovering the joy of each other's company, and it felt like we were starting to fall in love all over again. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. There were moments of doubt and insecurity. I found myself struggling against the memories of her betrayal, and sometimes I would catch myself dwelling on the fear that she might slip back into old habits. In those moments, I would remind myself of the progress we'd made and the commitment we had to one another. One evening, after a particularly emotional therapy session, I returned home feeling both uplifted and drained. Claire was waiting for me with a candle-lit dinner, an unexpected gesture that took me by surprise. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the effort she was putting in. "Matt," she began, her voice soft, I know I've hurt you deeply and I can't take back what I've done, but I want you to know how committed I am to making things right. You mean everything to me." I looked into her eyes and saw sincerity. "I appreciate that, Claire, I really do. It's been a long road, but I'm willing to keep moving forward with you. I want us to build something stronger together." And we did. The more time we spent rebuilding our trust, the more I believed that we could heal. Months passed, and although there were still challenges, we faced them together as a team. But the true test came one fateful Saturday afternoon. I had planned a surprise getaway for Claire to celebrate our progress, excited to show her how much I cherished her. As I packed the car, I noticed a message pop up on her phone. It was from Ethan. My heart sank as I hesitated before opening it. I told myself I would trust her, but the temptation to check was overwhelming. Taking a deep breath, I opened it. "Hey, just wanted to check in, been thinking about you. Are you sure you made the right choice?" Those words pierced through my chest like a dagger. A rush of anger swelled within me. My mind raced with images of her with him. I couldn't believe he was still reaching out, especially after everything we had been through. When Claire came outside, I confronted her with the message, feeling a surge of betrayal flood back. "Why is he still contacting you, Claire? I thought you were done with him." Her face paled as she processed the situation. "I swear I haven't responded. I thought he'd gotten the message that I wanted nothing to do with him anymore." "Then why is he still texting you? This doesn't feel like progress," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I'll block him. I'll do whatever it takes," she pleaded, her eyes wide with fear. "Please believe me, Matt. I've cut ties. I don't want him." In that moment, I had a choice to make. I could let the anger consume me, or I could believe her intentions. My heart knew that she had been working hard to rebuild our relationship, but that fear of losing her again surged through me. "Okay," I said slowly, "block him, but I need to see that you're serious about this. No more secrets, no more contact. If this is truly over, we need to prove it." Claire nodded vigorously, her determination evident. "I promise, Matt, I'm committed to us." As she reached for her phone, I felt the weight of my decision settle on my shoulders. I could either let this moment define us or choose to keep believing in the work we'd done. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of our journey together and the progress we had made. The next few months were crucial. Claire followed through on her word. She cut ties with Ethan completely and focused on our relationship. We continued therapy, and with each session, I felt the healing deepen. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, I realized that while the scars of our past would always be there, they no longer defined us. We were building something new, founded on honesty and vulnerability. "I love you, Claire," I said, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I love you too, Matt," she replied, her eyes shining with sincerity. "Thank you for believing in us." In that moment, I knew we weren't just surviving, we were thriving. We had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. While the journey was far from over, I felt confident that together, we could conquer anything life threw our way. And with that thought, I realized that love, when nurtured and fought for, could truly conquer even the most profound betrayals.